Alright guys, now we're going to start to come towards the end of Reconstruction in these lectures. There's a lot of support vanishing for this. The business leaders were thinking it was hurting the economy, some were thinking it violated states' rights, and the reports of corruption in Grant's administration were getting a lot of Republicans to maybe think that Reconstruction probably ought to come to an end. And despite all that corruption and those issues, Grant does still win re-election in 1872. And it's after that the corruption and the other issues start to come out in the public, and so Grant really looks bad, even though he had truly nothing to do with it. But in 1872, Congress does pass the Amnesty Act, pardoning nearly all the former Confederates. And the Democrats start to return to power in the southern states, the Klan helped by terrorizing the Republican voters. By 1876, only 3 southern states, Florida, South Carolina, and Louisiana, were not in Democratic hands. There were charges of corruption that followed all of the Republican leaders. And so 1876 is going to be a huge, important election.
The election of 1876 would prove telling, as the open wound of Reconstruction showed just how weak the presidency was becoming.
The election of 1876 goes down as one of the most controversial in American history. Rutherford B. Hayes is a compromise candidate. He's seen as a thoroughly unacceptable but reliable Republican. He's running against a fellow named Samuel J. Tilden of New York.
On election night, Tilden wins the popular vote. He's way ahead in the electoral vote, 184 to 165. But there are 3 southern states that are being contested. And those states are going to decide who's going to be the next president.
For the first time since 1824, when John Quincy Adams defeated Andrew Jackson, the election would hinge on the electoral count, not the popular one. In the shadow of civil war, the result would prove especially precarious.
The Democratic Party had seized control in all but 3 southern states, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Florida. In those 3 states, the election results were disputed.
Were black votes really counted fairly? Was there election fraud? How many votes should come from each of these states? So Congress has to figure out, what do you do?
The Electoral College results being challenged. Congress creates an electoral commission. The commission awards all 3 contested states to Hayes, so that Hayes is elected president by 1 electoral vote. If John Tyler was known as his accidency, Hayes was known as his fraudulency.
The dispute was resolved by an informal deal known as the Compromise of 1877, a bargain that would effectively end Reconstruction. Republicans agreed to remove the last federal troops in the South, which were keeping their party in power, in the same 3 states where the votes were disputed.
The compromise allows the Republican Party to abandon what had been its signature issue, the Reconstruction of the South. They've been taking political hits for this, so in some ways, not all Republicans are unhappy with the compromise.
So in this election, you have Hayes against Tilden. Hayes ends up winning in the eyes of the commission, but there's clearly an exchange. Hayes gets to be president of the United States, and the Democrats get what they want, even though they don't really want Tilden in office because he's a New Yorker and the Democrats were mostly popular in the South. They get the end of Reconstruction, and that was the biggest idea. Get the troops out of the South, give more aid to the South, and the Democrats promised to protect African American rights, but we'll see how that worked out. Thanks guys for paying attention. Hopefully we took good notes, and we'll see you tomorrow.